let's talk about draw steal, because I've got some thoughts. I know a lot of people might not like what I have to say. Want to say, okay, let me put out 1,001 disclaimers before I get very, very long essays in my comment section. This is a first impressions of playing draw steal. It was a one shot. Okay, it was the Delian tomb or Delian, whatever it is. What we played. These are not my final thoughts on the system, just my first impressions from this session. Okay? Any feelings or criticisms that I have of this experience is not a personal attack on you. You enjoy draw steal. Nor is it a slight towards the creators of draw steal. Now, you probably think, Daniel, there is no reason to be this hyper-specific and laying the groundwork before you give an opinion. And let me remind you that this is the internet. Okay? This is the internet. So with all that being said, overall, I think the system will be a ton of fun for the right people. Whether or not I am the right person for that system, I'm unsure for multiple reasons that we'll get into. So from what it seems this system is trying to accomplish is trying to create that feeling of you're basically superheroes right out the gate, of strong heroic fantasy at all times. It's about always, all the time, doing the coolest thing possible tactically, and also it's really cool and it looks cool and it feels cool. And it's very lethal, right? Again, after we had finished the one shot, we kind of had a discussion, and I was like, I think I was the one who said it. I was like, this kind of feels like someone trying to make like a modern heroic fantasy game, but with someone who's like design philosophies and in mindset and world building and lore building and all that sort of stuff is still coming from like 3.5 D&D or older, right? That's what it kind of feels like. Do I think it's successful in my first impressions at fulfilling the heroic fantasy? I think Draw Steal is successful at replicating a power fantasy, right? Because you always deal damage. You always have something cool you can do, which I appreciate, whether it's in your movement, whether it's in your maneuvers or your main action, etc. Or I forget what all the... It still has like bonus action, reaction, movement, but like they're named different things. I cannot remember them all off the top of my head. I also do apologize. This was like 3 weeks ago that we played this, but I've just been kind of sitting there with my opinions. And yeah, there's always something cool you could do. I played a wizard. We made our own characters, which I think was critically important to my enjoyment. But I made my own level 1 void elementalist, right? So I'm teleporting all over the place, and it is fulfilling a fantasy for me that I've always wanted, which is like this Nightcrawler aspect of like, I want a character who can teleport all the time, and I did get that. I could teleport as a reaction all over the place, as a bonus action all over the place, teleport my friends. I got to be this cool teleporting tactician. This subclass definitely felt like it was meant to be more of like a hit and run melee sort of like spell blade sort of mesh, because you do get the option to have light armor and a weapon. And I tried equipping that, but the character builder we were using was terrible. so it didn't wouldn't let me do that. It was messy in that regard, but so I couldn't do that. And so I had to play it as like a traditional at range sort of wizard, which is not really what I wanted to do, but you know, there's limitations of the technology we were using while putting together this one shot. I think the big hang up for me as we got to the end of the session, and you know, we did some cool stuff, add the traps and all this sort of stuff. I love the tactical aspect of this game. Like, do not get that twisted. Yes, I can do the role play, the whole 9 yards, right? The acting, blah, 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 blah. I can do that aspect perfectly fine. However, I love the tactical aspect of games like Dungeons and Dragons and the war game roots of it. And I love that playing this game reminded me of playing Fire Emblem. Right, of just like measuring out the squares and like how every single bit of movement that you do matters. The range of abilities using full squares. Like, I love the tactical combat aspect of this game. Right. I think the big hang up for me is the core selling point of the game, actually, which is you deal damage all the time, you never miss. And I think for me personally, that takes away one of the fundamental things that makes a hero's journey so captivating, and that's failure. Like, by the time we were in hour 3, I genuinely was bored of, to a certain degree, of the combat. It's just, okay, yeah, I deal damage. And there was no critically failing and critically succeeding. To me personally, are some of the most captivating and emotionally engaging aspects of playing a tabletop game, right? And specifically a game like a Dungeons and Dragons, a heroic fantasy style game, right? When we're talking about heroic fantasy, when we're talking about power fantasy, you can't, to me personally, you don't really get to have your cake and eat it too without without the possibility of great failure as well. And sure, the argument is that, well, but you're a highly trained, capable individual who is just an expert marksman. You should always be hitting those shots. It doesn't make any sense for you to miss. Yeah, but then also the group of goblins that we fought never missed. And sure, you can mitigate all these things with armor and or whatever other mechanics that are there. I couldn't really do that. I was a squishy little wizard. You know, it is what it is. You know, that's why I had to stay in the back, right? But it's just sitting there and I'm just like, okay, what else? Cool, we do damage. The tactical aspect of it is there. But to me, I know it sounds strange, but that is a critical part of the game that I was missing. And the number one argument against, you know, rolling to see if you hit is it doesn't feel good to wait all of that time and then you get nothing on your turn, which is true, right? That does not feel good. But there are so many other systems beyond Dungeons and Dragons that do different things to reward a player or create their engaging roles, even if you miss, right? Whether it's a fear system like in Dungeons, like in Daggerheart or in Hope system, whether you're talking about a stress mechanic, whether you're talking about drive, there's so many other mechanics in ttrpgs where you're still in some way, shape, or form being involved with what's happening, right? And also initiative plays a big factor in that. You have rigid turn-based combat in Dungeons and Dragons, which is why that happens. And there is a open form somewhat of initiative on the player and enemy side of everyone collaborating to choose who goes next, which adds to the tactical element. But that doesn't, I don't know, it just doesn't make up for that for me. You know, like there's just this disconnect in intention in like, and it's not saying that you can't die. It's a very lethal game. It has that, again, that old school dungeon crawling feel to it. It's just oozing every single aspect of this game. Like it wants to be crunchy. It wants to have a whole bunch of cumbersome rules. It wants to have so many different things that like the session super slow. And it's like, yes, we were learning the game, but like it just felt like so many things, even from the character creation process, were overly complicated and just such a chore to get through. Like the selecting your, even just selecting like your background traits and culture, like was just so, it felt so unnecessarily complicated. And at the end of the day, I still don't feel like I came out with something more interesting, you know? Like I don't really feel like I was rewarded for that investment. And it's just so many things just felt needlessly convoluted and overly cumbersome and rules heavy. And I don't really feel like I gained anything from always doing damage. Like it's just like, yeah, sure, I always do the cool thing. After a while, that no longer, for me personally, found any interest. But I can still see myself wanting to come back and try this system with the right group of players. And we start from the very beginning, stripping down what we want out of the system, the specific type of story that we want to tell, and trying to tailor a story that specifically fits this system, and really go through and see everything that the system has to offer, right? Because this is just a first impressions. This isn't my definitive feelings on this. I could play, let's say, 6 to 10 sessions of a game or a campaign or an adventure or something like that, and I could get to the end of it and I'd be like, oh my gosh, guys, this is the go-to. It's better than anything out there. It's better than Pathfinder. It's better than Dagger, blah, blah, blah. And also being better than other systems doesn't matter, right? Just, sorry, I didn't mean to hit my microphone, but being better than other systems doesn't matter. Just play the games that fit your table, that you enjoy, that are fun, and it fits the type of story that you're trying to tell. Like, it doesn't matter what system's better than the other. It's just about what system's right for your table. And I think I need to find the right table for this system in order to see everything it truly has to offer. But I will say, personally speaking, if I was not a content creator, I would not come back to this game. I'm gonna be real. Like, there's so many other games out there that I want to try that I would not come back to spend session after session after session trying to see if I can make this game work or if it fits for me. Personally, I wouldn't do that. I would just stick with the one shot and be like, we're good to go. I've seen what I wanted to see. I'm out of here. And yeah, man, it's, I don't know. I was not a fan of what I experienced. I did not enjoy what I experienced, but I am leaving room for coming back and being, swayed by the system and seeing what it has to say and what it has to offer. And, again, I'm not going to engage it like it's Dungeons and Dragons. I'm always going to engage a game based on its own merits, right? I'm not trying to force a game to be something that it's not. I'm not trying to force this game to be Dungeons and Dragons. I'm not trying to force this game to be Daggerheart, or like nothing, Draw steel is draw steel. And I don't think, and I want to make this clear, this is not me advocating for saying they need to add roll to hit for this game. No. The always doing damage is a part of the identity of this game, right? It's a part of the identity. Like, I'm not saying you should take that away. But there's just a lot about this game that just, I don't know, it just was not vibing with me. Also, the amount of resources management was not a lot going into it, but it wasn't great having to deal with. So I don't know. We'll see how it goes in the future. Yeah, I have a lot of complicated feelings about it, but I see the potential. You know what I mean? Like, have you ever been in like one of those situations where you're looking at something and you're like, oh, I feel like I need to come back because if I do this right and under the right circumstances, this could be so much fun and so interesting and so captivating. Especially if you're going in with a group of friends and you build something from scratch. You build a world from scratch in this system, and you build everything up, and the language and the backgrounds and the culture. Like, there's so much fun to be had of just getting a group of friends together if you're starting with Draw Steel and building from the ground up with it. I can see the potential there. And I don't know who's been saying this also, I do not think this game is easier to learn than any other system out there. It's pretty cumbersome on the rules and the mechanics, at least from my experience. But at the end of the day, this is just the first impressions. This is not the last time I'm going to talk about this game. I'm going to find a way to play this game again and find a table to play this with and see how I enjoy my experience later. The abilities were cool. The teamwork aspect of the game is really captivating. The tactical aspect of the game is the best part of the game. It is super, super fun. Again, it scratches like that itch, that tactical itch in my brain, like when I'm playing Fire Emblem or something like that, or Unicorn Overlord, of like just any strategy RPG. Like, oh, it hits it bad. It's like my dopamine was popping off when I was looking at them squares and planning out my attacks. So that aspect of the game is great. But I'm debating on whether or not mechanically the game truly matches its core ethos of being a heroic fantasy in general. But yeah, this is my first impressions. Things will change, or we'll see how it goes. I'm going to be interested in seeing what the feedback on this is going to be. Because I know there's so much tribalism in the TTRPG space, which is why I have to add that disclaimer at the beginning. Because people just don't like to hear people's opinions, I guess, if it's not exactly saying what they already feel about something. And yeah, and listen, I've been super excited about this game. I've running the game, designing the game with Matt Koval has been a staple of my journey into the TTRPG space ever since I started playing. I've been watching, Matt's videos. So watching the development of this game go on ever since the OGL debacle and all that sort of stuff was super engaging to watch. And it's super fun to play something that you saw the initial concept and idea for and watch it evolve. So it's really interesting to see it actually come into fruition, which is pretty cool. But with all that being said, I think that's all I got to say about Draw Steel. Let me know what you think of Draw Steel in the comment sections down below. What should I do? Should I play it? Play another again? What should I do to mix it up? Any other recommendations for playing Draw Steel? Let me know. I'm sure you all will. But, let me know what you think about the system down below.